So I was actually reading a book earlier, and this book is in regard. It's a business book, right? And funny enough, I encountered an example inside of the business book, which wasn't really about business, but it was they were trying to get a point across, and they were trying to get this point across that within you there are many persons. You're not really just like one person. Within you there are many personalities with many worlds and intentions and motives and likes and dislikes, many identities. And the example that they gave was, something along the lines of when, let's say, you have gained a lot of weight and you have started to feel maybe really sluggish or unhealthy. And, like that's the perspective that you were looking through for a while. And you had those habits, those mannerisms, those thoughts, those cravings. And eventually, so you get to a place where you are sort of dissatisfied and you feel sluggish and unhealthy. So you want to make a change, right? Because you start to suffer that identity. Now another identity comes alive in you, which is like, let's say, the healthy person, and that comes with its own set of thoughts, own set of intentions, motives, desires, and whatnot. And so like now because the pull of that is strong in that moment, you start to live through that identity, and then that becomes I. Previously it was the unhealthy personality, now is the healthy personality. When when it takes hold of I, it becomes I. Everything that comes after it, which is the thoughts, emotions, actions, everything flows according to that identity, you know? So they were giving that example. And what I found funny though is where after giving this example, how like everybody's constantly in conflict within themselves because there are many different identities always wanting different things, and there's never any consistency. And one time you want this and another time you want that. One time you are committed to this, but then another time, another day comes, things change, and you are totally lazy and not committed. So everybody's in conflict within themselves, they said. And then they said something along the lines of like, you are not this identity or that identity, you are both, you are, it's not I, it's we. So they were saying that you're not just that I that, currently is, you are also the other, which then comes, and then the other. And they were talking about how to go about reducing this inner battle. But like, so it was appropriate for that particular conversation and the theme being explored in the book. However, here's where we go a little step deeper. And rather than just taking that taking that for granted, that like, oh, I am just all of these different personalities, or I am that which changes, we start to see that actually I am not one or the other. I am neither. What am I really? Through our own self observation, we're starting to grow in the understanding of and the clear seeing of that, like these identities, these moods, these thoughts, these intentions, these desires, these fears, they grab a hold of my sense of self, right? They arise as I, they speak as I. When we say I, we're usually picturing a face with a name and a story and a background and a want and a not want. Last Saturday, we very powerfully spoke of how we have to question this. When we say things like, "Oh, this thought is bothering me," or "This memory has a great hold on me, and it's bothering me that it's arising in my mind right now," we talked so deeply at last Saturday about like, who is it bothering? We have to question that. It is a very deep inquiry question. Don't take it at surface value. Who is bothered by the arising of this thought? On behalf of whom am I bothered? Or another question, better rephrasing is, as what am I bothered? We're always speaking as a someone, as a particular identity, as a name, as a story. We're talking as and through an idea that we have of ourselves. But through our own self-observation, we have to start to see how that idea that I'm operating through about myself is also so changeful. It changes like the seasons based on what is convenient for this moment. So rather than, that book, for the sake of that conversation that was going on in that book, which said, oh, you are all of these personalities. Here we are saying, actually, take a deeper look. You are none of those personalities. And we're not saying that you are a person that is none of those personalities. Actually, all personal identity is false. You are not a person. In the context of a business book, of course, that cannot be discussed, because in order to even read a business book, you need to go in with the premise that I am a person building a business and doing this and this and that and trying to, achieve something. Here, we are questioning our most obvious assumptions as what I take myself to be. We go on these deep spiritual journeys about like, oh, let me heal my emotional trauma and this and that. But like, we go on these journeys with the self-imposed filter of I am a person that has a past. And then we encounter the idea that you are not that. And then it becomes another concept that I hold, I, the person. Again, when I say these things, oh, I keep referring to I, and I'm thinking of that image, the person that I am not a person. That is where we make the mistake. And that is what we are discussing here to very clearly point out and question the validity of that. Because as long as we take ourselves to be a person and we are always seeing everything through that perspective, then there will always be some sort of agitation, being bothered by this, being bothered by that, liking that, not liking that, wanting this. And then that will continue to change and parade around as the self, for whom there are all these problems and worries and fears and whatnot. But once we start to question, okay, on behalf of whom is this fear? As what am I bothered? We start to see that like only as long as I operate as a someone with an agenda, I can be bothered, or I can have desire, or I can have fear. If you drop that personal identity, if in this moment you do not assume that I'm a person, who is there left to be bothered? It's like the example that we always talk about when we talk about acceptance, is that acceptance brings you to a place of being like the space like being that you are, which is not here as a particular thing, yet it is that because of which all things appear. The space of this room is not really here as a particular thing. It's not here as a particular object, but all objects that are here are only here because of the space that exists. The objects we can say exist, but the space is. So acceptance, the practice of acceptance, it brings us to the acknowledgement of our call it space like being. And we talk about very often how, in order to, you know, for the concepts of desire, fear, this and that arise, we need to bring in object identity. We need to identify as something so that we can relate with other things and draw create divisions, draw lines and create divisions. So it's a when you are in a state of distress, when you are in a state of misery, it is a very powerful opportunity to, if you have time and you just, investigate, as what am I bothered? As what am I suffering? It's not like you need that to be resolved ASAP. It's not like you need to understand this ASAP. In this very moment, it may not become clear to you that, like, oh, it's only on behalf of the personal identity, but we at least have to investigate. Ramana Maharshi in his teaching said that the ego can only be as so long as you do not investigate it. Once you investigate it, it will vanish because it's not there. It's all a mind-made construct. It's all a mental idea. So last conversation, we talked deeply about how we are constantly relating with things as a thing. This is where the question, who am I, really comes into play. When you're asking the question, who am I, you have to drop all assumptions about what you are. Your most obvious assumptions. And there are so many operating at any given moment. So many identities just operating in the background because they have become so obviously accepted and unquestioned. Such as, I am old or young, man, woman, doctor, lawyer, happy, sad, and countless others. We attach I am, which is beingness, to experience, to things, to objects, to changeful phenomena. And that is what we are questioning in self-inquiry, or even, like, let's say earlier when we were sitting in silence, we are allowing all of those objects to ease away from I am. When you're practicing the pointer, that is what you're doing. Because, like, of course, like, it's nice to talk about it in this way, just drop the identity, but it's not that simple. We need to learn to take back our being from being hostage to these things. Right now, all these identities are holding the being hostage. So what is our tool? What is the tool that we have employed for this task? It is the pointer that we resonate with, whether it's awareness of sensation, awareness of awareness. In either of the two, we are learning to dissolve this association with things, the identification of being with things that come and go. When you're practicing the pointer, which is a simple shift of attention, when you're practicing the pointer, it doesn't allow any room for concepts. When concepts arise, you're just asked to direct your attention away from them, back to your pointer. This is the extent of our devotion. That is the place where you have to practice your devotion. Either we are devoted to concepts, or we are devoted to the search for the truth of ourselves. Either we are devoted to the not self, or we are devoted to self. That's why we say in the moments of practice, there's absolutely nothing that needs to be thought. There is absolutely nothing that needs to be projected right now. No concept matters. No concept is important. Even your resistance, your doubt, your confusion. Again, on behalf of whom are all these things arising? On behalf of the person you take yourself to be. Does awareness doubt? Is awareness confused? Is awareness doing, have any agenda? So the pointer helps you be as awareness is. Why awareness? Because like that is the closest thing to you here. When I say I can negate everything as not myself, everything that changes. Just this presence feels most intimate. So intimate that it's not even really presenting itself to me as a thing. I can't see it. I am seeing as it. I am. I know. These are the only two factual statements you can make about yourself. And so we're just sticking with facts. Silence, the practice of the pointer, is just learning to stick with the one fact. I am. I know. They appear to be two, but they're one, inseparable, the same. Just like fire is hot, hot fire. There's no such thing as cold fire. So just being aware being. We're just isolating amness, beingness, away from all things. Just like when, let's say right now you are to see my face, your eyes are focused on my face and everything else that you see is blurred out of view. It's still there. You can still see it, but it's the only thing that is in your focus is my face. What you think about my face is secondary, whether you like it or you don't like it, whether you think it's good or bad. But the focusing of my face, the awareness of my face is fact. You are seeing my face. And that seeing is, isolated. It is focused at the expense of all other things. So just like that, we are, especially in self-inquiry, we are learning to isolate our beingness, amness, at the expense of all other things. Isolating the I, the sense of self. So this is a question by John. John said, I guess a question that has been on my mind regularly is the doubt that this will give me peace and calm. How to let go of resisting to thoughts that I know aren't true but bother me anyway. Why is silence so often not silent? And I have 20 to 30 redirects in a sit down practice. So this is sort of two questions. So let's cover the first one, which is the big opportunity of exposing the personal identity. Anywhere else in the world, you may go and you may say, okay, I'm having this problem. Give me a solution to fix this problem, right? Whereas here, when we're having problems with our meditation practice and we're having all these doubts and resistances and these thoughts that are bothering us, we say, okay, can you give me something that will help me stop being so bothered by these thoughts, that will help me get rid of these thoughts? Instead of us getting something that will help us stop getting bothered by these thoughts, we are invited to question the very me that is being defined in this statement that is bothered, especially in today's conversation. Many times we create concessions and we talk, very personally, but especially in today's conversation, this is worth investigating. How to let go of resisting to thoughts that I know aren't true, right? So the first part, so John said, I know they aren't true. We are seeing that, hey, they are just concepts. They are just fabricated narratives, stories, just pure psychological chatter, which is the first step. We really have to start to differentiate between being and concepts, right? You are. That is a fact. You are aware of experience. That cannot be questioned. Whether everything you know is an illusion or not, the knowing, your being, your knowing cannot be questioned. Even to question, you must first be. So that is a non-conceptual fact. Whereas notice anything that arises in the mind is conceptual. Even the very first thought, I, is a concept. So we do have to differentiate between awareness or being versus concepts. Concepts see that they are just ideas. They are just empty. Like they're not true. If they are pursued and identified with, they sort of start becoming true, right? Because they take hold over, they become the identity, and they start to perpetuate, and that translates into all these other things. And it's like, okay, so that becomes our truth, but a changeful truth, not real. So it's a transient fact, or we can call a transient actuality, but it changes. So therefore, it is not really true. So look at thoughts as like just narratives. If someone else came and offered you their opinion or ideas just randomly all the time, you would stop listening to that person. But there is this constant chatter, this opinion and judging also arising in your head. And you take that one very, very seriously. You really hold that one very dearly. So we have to start to see that they are entirely conceptual. They don't hold any meaning. They do not need to be pursued. Once believed in, they start to make trouble. Mm-hmm. So that's the first, and we'll talk about that a little more too. But that's the first thing. We have to start seeing that all thoughts are merely conceptual, and my seeing of them is not conceptual. That doesn't mean I'm saying, oh, I am seeing this. Oh, this is just a thought. No, because again, we have to notice that that is also just more psychological chatter. That is just more thought. I'm still operating from thought. We're not talking about speaking. The seeing that is being talked about, in which thoughts appear, does not speak. You do not speak. You are only aware. So from here, once we begin to see that all thoughts are conceptual, now is the next step where he said, okay, I know they're just conceptual. I know they're not true, but they bother me anyway. This is a wonderful opportunity because we can investigate, who do they bother? What do they bother? What is bothered exactly? Is it a thought? Is it a feeling? Is it a sensation? What is bothered? What exactly is here that is being bothered by whatever is present? This can maybe even seem like a silly question at first because we're so lost in the reality of my life, you know? Like, of course it's me that's bothered. Like, how could you even say that? We're so like lost in our belief that everything we are experiencing is so real and true that, and like it is such a problem that like we're not even willing to genuinely question the identity from where we are operating. What do I refer to when I say I? What is this me that is bothered, that is agitated, that is constantly craving and resisting and always like restless? And once this question is asked, don't let thought once again get a hold of this. Like, oh, I get it. Yeah, that's just my personal self. But that doesn't mean I'm not bothered. Don't take that lightly. The moment you let thoughts talk about this question, take over, once again, those thoughts are also talking as the one that's bothered. All thoughts that arise talk as the one that is bothered and needs a solution. At the heart of all thoughts is the idea that I have of myself, not what I actually am. And as long as we are living from the idea that I have of myself, I can never be at ease. So you may say, then what? If all thoughts are arising as that one that is bothered, then what to do? Notice that. If it is in your seeing, it is not you. Because only when you start to see that the thought that is arising that says, I am bothered, is arising on behalf of a self image, a, a mental identity, an idea, which is also part of that thought. That self image or identity or personality is not somewhere actually there as a thing that you are. It is also thought made. And once we start to see that, we can stop feeding it with belief. Once we start to see that, then the sting of that being bothered starts to go. When we start to see that, we also see as what? Because there's a subtler recognition. It's no longer that we are speaking of that. Oh, that is just a thought. We are simply aware of that. It is a noticing, a spontaneous recognition, which needs no words. That one does not say anything. That one doesn't even have an agenda against the personal self. It's not saying, oh, the personal self is such a problem, oh, such a troublemaker, get him out of here. Many times people will say, like, oh, I've been seeking for so many years and I just want it to end. I'm done with the mind. I want the mind to end. I don't want to ever think again. What is saying these things? Who is at the heart of these statements? It is, that is why this practice is so powerful. This investigation is so powerful. And that's why that quote that I shared earlier by Ramana Maharshi, that the ego can only persist as long as it goes unquestioned. So we continue to speak as the conceptual self. We continue to speak through and think through the idea that I have of myself. The moment you start to see the content of my thinking along with the perspective that it is being thought from as the just a package of idea that it is, then you can start to acknowledge your seeing of it, which is actual, which is not saying anything, thinking anything. It simply is. And then you can start to experience the ease of that because that one is at ease. The body and the mind may be at dis-ease, but that in which they both appear is at ease. Just like the space of this room, I can light a fire in here. I can break the walls and the table. The objects are at a state of unease, right? But the space in which all of this crazy stuff is being done, it simply is. It has no notion of being bothered. You cannot bother it. You have to at least be open to the possibility that you are that. It doesn't need to be the experience right now. That's okay. But we have to be at least open to the possibility that that is the case. Because with that hypothesis, you can then practice the pointer in such a brand new, clarified, motivated way. Because isn't this something worth discovering? Isn't this worth pursuing because everything else that you have ever tried has not helped? Would this not be the greatest thing, like the most important thing? So we have to be open to that possibility instead of just doubting it at the very outset when it's said, which is the greatest obstacle to spiritual discovery. Hearing it and be like, that sounds nice, but this is my actual experience. Tell me what to do about it. You see, like we continue to give reality to what currently appears to be true. And we don't want to explore what may be true. We are saying, no, this is true. What you say sound nice, but that's not my experience yet. But that's the beauty of this teaching, with the path of silence, the path of what they call jnana yoga, or gyan yoga, is like through your own discernment. So like the teaching comes into your life and offers you it is a concept, right? All these are concepts, but the concepts are pointing to something. They're pointing to you, something that is much more real about you than anything that you take yourself to be. And so it sounds nice, and we are intrigued, we are interested. We're no longer just interested in, just worldly personal things. Our interest has sort of matured a little bit. It just feels like I'm moving towards something greater than just, money and this and this and that. In that, we of course, it's not our experience yet, but we accept the possibility of that. And then we take the tools that are given from the teaching and begin to apply it. The biggest obstacle that I see people run into is like right away when the teaching is heard, or at the very first time when it is attempted at practice and it doesn't go the way that we want it to, instantly doubting, resisting, fearing, rejecting. And then we just start to affirm our own reality, like what currently appears to be real for me, that is all, my truth. Which, of course, sure, you're definitely entitled to that. But here is like we're all gathering for a brand new possibility. We are questioning our most obvious assumptions on behalf of which we are suffering so much already. We have seen time and time again, no matter where we are on the spiritual path, we constantly are sharing with each other how applying this, it clarifies things. It brings wisdom. It relieves suffering. It helps you become free from so many things that you were identified as and clinging to in the past. So it's like once you start to even taste that a little bit, then trust the entirety of it and go all in. That's the best way. So we accept it as a possibility. What are we accepting as a possibility? That you are not a person. Crazy thing to say anywhere other than this, than the confines of this conversation. If you're not a person, what are you? I still am, right? I still am. If I'm not a person, then as what am I here? As what am I present? And don't go to your library of concepts and say, oh, awareness, oh, I've read about this and that. No, here and now, we have to, like, through our own discernment, through our own looking in our experience. And when mind says such things as, oh, I am bothered, this is bothering me, we have to really question, investigate, see the falseness of that statement and the falseness of the one on behalf of whom it is arising. In moments of practice, just instill no belief or interest in your thoughts. They only have so much power over us because they have a great sense of belief. So if, you're doing this practice and, like, of course, maybe some memories or thoughts are arising that keep, like, bothering me, then acknowledge also that they only have as much power as your belief in them. If you believe in them, if you take it to be true, if you take it to be important, significant, then they will have a great deal of power. Then they will feel so sticky, which is why the thoughts that we struggle with the most are the ones that are centered around the areas of our personal life that we care about the most, that we have a greatest need to control, or we have the greatest attachment or desire about. So those will be your biggest resistances, but they will also be your biggest opportunities. It just depends the way you look at it. In moments of practice, though, you can totally let go of attributing any significance to any thought, even a thought that's, maybe trying to break this all down in words. Just even no need for that. We're returning to our non-conceptual being, because I am is the only thing that I can say for sure about myself. I don't know what I am. I simply am. So let me just be as I am. No associations with anything that I am not. So how to apply this teaching into our daily life? For this, you need to practice self-inquiry meditation every single day. Currently, I am giving 2 free resources on self-inquiry meditation. One is my self-inquiry guide, which is a PDF document that walks you through how to practice step by step. I'll leave the link down below in the description. You can download it. And the second is my free self-inquiry mini course. In the video course, I will also walk you through the practice in more depth than I go into inside of the document. Again, I'll link that down below as well. Now, if with everything that we covered today, you're having a really hard time and you are lacking structure and consistency in your practice and you need help with that, learn more about my School of Awakening, which is my day-by-day meditation and self-inquiry program that really helps you deepen your practice. It helps you dissolve mind identification and awaken to your true self, awaken to your true being. Again, I will link that down below. Use any resource that you connect with that resonates with you. I want to thank you for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It really helps the channel. And subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you again. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.